So this episode has a slight audio issue. I want to give you guys a heads up on. It's only on my end. It's my audio. So I don't. The episode is Marjorie. So I only jump in here and there. It's not horrible. I went in there and I kind of lowered the audio a little bit so it wouldn't be too annoying. But it's like this. Welcome to the show. It's like an interference. That sounds great. It's like it's a little interference that comes in when I talk, and I just wanted to let you guys know that I know that it's there, and it's really annoying. I mean, I have all the equipment I need. I know what I'm doing. It's this platform that I've been using called StreamYard. I don't know what's going on with it. I'm done with them. I've got one more interview next week that I did with StreamYard that I already recorded. And that's fine. But anyways, it's not that big of a deal. Just you'll now that you know, it's not going to bother you. And like I said, I only talk a little bit. So, all right, enjoy the show. Let's get into it. This episode of Maverick in the Machine is brought to you by Jones Plantation Film. If you haven't seen the indie, soon-to-be cult classic Jones Plantation Film yet, go watch that film. It's available now at jonesplantationfilm.com. That's jonesplantationfilm.com and on most major streaming platforms.
Jones!
Also, my new film, Barnum World, is out now. And per the Indiegogo campaign we did, it's available everywhere for free. So you can find that at my YouTube channel at Drew Media TV, my Rumble channel. All my channels are basically Drew Media. And there'll be more platforms coming soon. Now, let's start this episode of Maverick in the Machine.
Insanity is what I call society. Don't tell me what to do, don't tell me how to be. I don't trust the government, I know they lie to me. Never like my body, yo, for my soul and mind to breathe.
All right. I've got a awesome Maverick in the building today. If you guys, this is going to be a really interesting talk, and it's also going to be really actionable. Even if you don't have a farm, if you have an apartment like I do, because I've got one of the world's leading experts on homesteading and growing your own food, which includes meat and animals, Marjorie Wildcraft. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, Drew. Thanks so much for having me. I love that name, Maverick in the Machine. I've been meditating on that, and I'm like, wow, that just kind of summarizes most of my life.
Yeah, it took me a while to come up with that. I'm glad you like it. I haven't been sure about it. You know what I mean? It's grown on me, but at the beginning I was like, but then I just went with it.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get going here.
Yeah, well, in your intro, I can't believe it. But yeah, if you'd have known me earlier, you'd say, wow, how did she ever get into like survival and preparedness and growing food? So yes, I'm the founder of the Grow Network, and it's one of the web's largest portals for everything related to self-sufficient living, self-reliance. So, and this is more from what I would call the home front perspective. Yes, I do. I lived in Texas for 2 decades. I'm pretty good with a gun, not the best ever, but I can get the job done. But this is really what I call the home front. So food, medicine, community. Taking care of the kids, I grew up in the South, and my coach was a Civil War buff, and we would, as we traveled around to do different athletic events, he'd always stop at these battlefields. And I always wondered, yeah, you're talking about the cannons and the horses and the da-da-da and the technology and the warfare and whatever, but what did the women and children do? And so anyway, my perspective is on what the women and children do and we are at war. Let us not doubt that at all. It's starting to become apparent to everybody, but we've been at war for a long time, actually. And so that's a little bit about me.
Well, you talk about it being at war. I think one of the best ways to de-slave yourself or de-enslave yourself, it might be the best way, is to have control over your food. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't really get out of the system unless you have your own food supply. And it goes along with money and all the other things that you need. But food is number one. And right now at this point in time, everything's toxic, right? Everything. Like we used to say you could be a perimeter shopper, right? That's not true anymore. I just saw the organic standards. Bill Gates has this thing called Appeal, which is they can,
Yes.
yeah, this nasty stuff they can spray on an apple and it like lasts forever or something like that. It's now been Appeal, whatever that is now been admitted into the organic standards. Like
Wow.
you've
That's
only been,
USDA, right? Or is that just because I mean
yeah,
you can't trust USDA for anything?
no, you can't. But I don't know how many of the other ones. See,
Yeah.
Washington State used to be pretty tough, but I don't trust any of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Just as a side note, what is wrong with Bill Gates? There's something wrong with that guy. Like, he's a psychopath? Like, he was literally saying we shouldn't plant trees if he wanted to solve the so-called environmental crisis. It's like, what if that guy was a serious person and actually was pro-human? He would be talking about. He would be putting money into, like, how do we go back to small farming? How do we go back to organic, farm to table? How do we get families together to cook together again? Like, he would be doing all that, but he's doing like the exact opposite. He's trying to create like food from like microbes and like that disgusting. I don't know if you've ever seen that video where he's like eating that disgusting yogurt that he tried to make. He can't even, he's like with Anderson Cooper and they're talking about this like great microbial yogurt he's making. He tries to take a bite of it and he almost like gags on his own thing, It's like, it's on the line. It's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. What is wrong with that guy?
I don't know. You're right. He does look super creepy, but really all of them do. I mean, God knows what they've had to do to get in or what happened to them to get in the positions they're in. But yeah, they've definitely lost their humanity.
Yeah.
And that guy, think about like how much karma he's going to have to deal with for how long, for all the millions and millions and millions of people that he's killed with these vaccines and that kind of stuff. Like that's, yeah, I don't know. I actually just send love to those guys and pray for them because there is a law. There is
Yeah.
a law, and you can't get around it. So
No. No.
yeah, yeah,
What's that quote? I think Lao Tzu said, if I'm pronouncing his name, because everybody has different pronunciations. It's like the net of heaven spans the entire universe, but not a single thing ever gets by. Like you
that's a
can't cheat.
wonderful thing.
That's
Yeah,
isn't that real? You can't cheat the universe. You try. I've tried. I tried my whole youth. I tried and tried and tried and tried. And natural law will always smash you down. There's just no way around it.
it's true. Yeah, and that the work of Steiner, Rudolf Steiner was like his life's work was to bring back the concept of reincarnation and karma to modern peoples because it has been intentionally removed. I was at 535. They took all of reincarnation out of the Bible, or tried to anyway. You can't really take it out because you know, and that's a whole nother piece of work that's been messed with forever too. I find it pretty interesting and funny, and you got to find this thing funny because if you don't, you're going to really be upset with yourself. But that King Charles, right? He's now king, uh, who is a Satanist,
Yes.
has the rights to the King James version of the Bible, which is like 55% of all Bibles are out there, and I just find that so infinitely interesting.
Well, how do you get the rights to a Bible? The Bible.
Well, but if you think it is the King James version, it's part. I don't know if it's the rights or, but his lineage was the one that created the King James version. It was one of his ancestors, King James.
Hmm.
So yeah, they own a
Which
lot
is
of stuff. I haven't dug into it too much, but man, they own. It's astonishing what the crown owns. So yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's weird because you get like different camps. Like there's some camps that Israel owns everything and the Jews own everything. And then there's another camp that's like actually it's the British Empire, and they're still going here in America. Like you get these different camps on that.
I've I've heard all of that too, and I agree with you. I hear who knows, but
Who
clearly
knows?
something pretty evil is, and then of course the alien conversation. That it's alien that's been managing the planet, and all those guys are just kind of like lower level management to them. So, but whatever, something has. I mean, our food is toxic. Our educational system is designed to make you a moron, and to take out the best joy of your life when you're a kid. Our financial system is just that. It's a system of fines. transportation system is it's ultimately made to make you dependent on fossil fuels because they control that. And then power and everything else. Everything you can think of in the medical system. Oh my God, that's a death cult. So
Yeah.
like you look at all of this stuff, and I have to say, it was Mark Passio who I met at Anarchapulco, and I'd always heard that conversation about the leading management or whatever is Satanists and pedophiles and all that, and for years, because I've been in the survival preparedness on the alternative media fringe for a long time, and I was always just like, oh, I just don't want to deal with that, like I'll just teach people how to grow food. You guys deal with that. But then finally, it was Mark Passio who kind of had me come face to face with it, and then I met. Max Lowen, who's actually an SRA survivor, and she was telling me her horrible stories. And it, like when the universe wants you to come face to face, and I did. And finally, actually, it was really an incredible relief, honestly, because all of my life I'd had like a low level of, not even low level, sometimes it was more significant, of depression, like, because I know something is fundamentally wrong with the way this planet is configured. But I couldn't put my finger on it. When he started to lay out like, oh, there's this whole thing going on, I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. We don't necessarily know who it is. Catherine Austin Fitts calls it Mr. Global.
Yeah. That's a good one.
We don't know who, but it's clearly something or someone is at the top of the heap. So
I've heard it called the hierarchy enslaving you. I like that one.
oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Because they say, who's they? And it's the hierarchy enslaved. I think it's dark entities for sure. Like I've talked about this, but like if it's just people screwing around and being assholes, like I'll be in shock. Like this is not something humans can do. Like it has to be, I think it's, instead of aliens, I think it's more of like a dark satanic type of entity. You know what I mean?
Totally agree. I mean, humans
though?
aren't we're definitely not angels, but I can give you a couple of examples. So one is I love thin, small books that are quick and easy to read, and it's called Tribe. And it talks about when humans are under distress. Like one of the scenes from it was not scenes, but one of the depictions during World War II, all the British had to go down into the underground, right, because they were getting bombed, right? So that was like the safest place. And the prevailing conversation was, oh, when you put all those people underground together, it's going to be just chaos. They're going to kill each other. They're going to maim. It's going to be awful. And absolutely the opposite happened. People cooperated. They figured out areas for this and that and how to get water or what to deal with pregnant women. It was like that. And and that whole book is full of examples like that. And another one, just to me, I live in Puerto Rico. And so definitely have some anarchist friends and people who are a little more awake here. And this one friend of mine, she's like, oh my God, I've got it. I don't have any weapons or anything like that. And I said, hey, Sandy, you lived here through Hurricane Maria, right? And she says, yeah, she's Puerto Rican, been here all her life. And so for 8 months, where she is, there was no electric, and she's not that, like most of this side of the island had no electric for at least 6 months, water, anything like that. It was hard times. It was a real severe time. I said, did anybody do any looting during that time? Was there any theft? Was there any robbery? She said, no, we all really helped each other out. And I'm like, yeah. When you see that footage, like during Katrina, was people running around with AR-15s, now, like, who paid them? That's what we need to ask now, is who paid them to do that? And maybe there are some bad actors from time to time, for sure, if you get the anonymity of a big city or something. But by and large, I really don't think humans are wired that way. This is a construct that's put on us.
Well, that's when there is bad actors. I think it is constructed that way to put people in a situation where they're going to act. Like, I always say that these people are anti-multiculturalism. What they want is they pretend like it's through multiculturalism, but they want to mix us all together and basically just make us like a giant brown blob. We have no history, we have no culture, we have no race, we have no religion. We're just consumers and slaves. And they hate multiculturalism. They hate humanity, so obviously they hate different cultures. They want to just flatten everything. And when you have
Yeah.
like society, not to cut you off, but have a society like ours where it's this like become this low trust multicultural, but it's not really a culture at all. That's when you have that people don't give a shit. And when things get bad, they're just going to go think for themselves. I'm sorry, I cut you off. What you going to say?
No, I wonder now, as somebody who raises livestock, I do see a lot of parallels to how humans are managed on this planet and livestock. I mean, I don't treat my animals or my livestock that way, but I do, they're talking about the replacement. We're moving this livestock in and we're moving that livestock in. And oh my gosh, I use the parallel of the Jones plantation all the time. I'm like, yes, I'm on the American plantation.
Like when you see it, you just go Jones Plantation. If you see something, that Berwick brought that up. He's like, we're trying to get it so when people see things, they go, oh, there's Jones Plantation.
Yeah.
You start
Yeah,
to- 'cause
Jones plantation. Yeah.
What gets measured gets managed. If you can start to see it, then you can manage it. Same thing with like Barnum or with Barnum statements. Once you see Barnum statements, then you can go, that's a Barnum statement. I'm not going to be fooled by that.
I love that you'd actually codified that, because all my life when I'd ever listened to politicians, I was like, that just doesn't mean anything.
Right.
you know,
Right.
but people get behind it and they're
Yeah.
like, that just doesn't make any sense to me. Y'all do you, I'm going to do me. I don't want anything to do with politics, So, but what I wonder is what their motives are. I mean, really. And the adrenochrome conversation is one that makes sense. I mean, because what do they need humans for? I mean, it looks like they use us for a lot of things, but I saw that video. Oh my God, what a tearjerker! The sound of freedom about the child trafficking.
I haven't seen that. I don't think I want to. It's gonna be
No,
too
no,
disturbing.
it's horrible. And the thing is they didn't really go into it. I mean, they went into it, but not to what I felt was the degree they did. And they portrayed in that video, the main perpetrators were, some sleazy drunk guy or something like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, because at the end they talk about how, and I've seen an update on this, that human trafficking and especially child trafficking is larger than the gun trade and the drug trade. I'm like, look, if it's just a few sleazy perverts and maybe just to fulfill the needs for Jeffrey Epstein, that's not that many people. You know what I mean? You don't need a trade as big as the gun trade or the drug trade. What is happening to that chunk of humanity? And of course, the adrenochrome makes sense. They're harvesting people for that. But what else are they? What are they wanting here? I mean, maybe if they're alien, we may not. It may not even be something we can be conscious of. I don't know.
Are you familiar with the work of Nick Bryant?
Haven't heard of him. No, what's his work?
Oh, he studies. He wrote a book on the Franklin scandal, which was this crazy child trafficking ring that went all the way to the White House in the 80s. Mm-hmm. It's a crazy story. I mean, what you're talking about, yeah, the drunk guy. No, this is people on very high levels of power, and that's his thing, is trying to bust open these. I think he released Epstein's Black Book. He was the first one to release his Black Book, because the Epstein client list thing is just a scam. There's not like some PDF hidden somewhere, But he released his Black Book, and he's over time come to realize that this is like an occult type of thing, and that they go after kids because of the purity and the innocence of them. Mm-hmm. There's something that attracts them to that. That makes sense to me. And of course, the adrenochrome thing, but we're getting into a dark place.
Yes, but we got lots of solutions. Actually, I mean, as I was saying before I met Mark and I passed you, I was like, when you go into it and you say, okay, this is what's going on here. We don't know all the answers, but this is happening. That's a place you can move from then. And like, how do I navigate this? What do I do? And what am I actually dealing with? So you don't get into hopium, or whatever.
You need to be armed with the truth so you can protect yourself. Because I always use the example of a guy who lives in a town and there's a mob in that town that's killing people and burying them, and he goes and tells the police, but he doesn't realize that the police are partners with the mob, and he ends up buried in the cemetery. Like, okay, it's terrible, everybody's corrupt, but at least you can move through the world and protect yourself. You need to know the truth. You need to be armed with the truth.
You do. And it does, I've been trying for 20 years or teaching people how to grow food and trying to get more and more people to grow food. And I'm going to tell you, not many people do. And I think when people start to realize the truth of the magnitude of what the problems are, then they start going, oh, I really think that maybe this is important. So
It's so important. It's just, I bought into all the bullshit for years and years, and I just assumed, like, the whole thing with like, there's so much abundance, there's so much food here. It's like, and this is the thing, they always say there's going to be like a starvation event or something. There's no food, so there's not going to be a starvation event, in my opinion, because all the stuff in the grocery store, they can make that in a lab. All the box crackers, everything, that's not food, so they can make that all day long. There's already a starvation event. There's already a malnutrition event, and they poison the food, they poison the air, they poison the water. They want you malnutrition because you're more controllable, right? If you're people say, oh, there's a weight thing. Yeah, everybody's fat, but they're also severely malnutrition. One of the reasons why they keep eating all this garbage. And what was I had written down the reasons that it's poisoned. Oh, it's also the production is evil. Corporate farming is like animal torture. It's like
it's horrible.
It's like an animal holocaust. It truly is. And by the way, that's for vegetables too. There, you vegans. Okay, more animals are killed in corporate vegetable farming than in regular farming. All the little rodents and squirrels, and they get massacred.
Oh my God. Yeah, that last mile they call it when they're harvesting like the wheat or something like that, and all the things have been scurrying to the place where there's nothing, and then when they go and they harvest that last bit, they slaughter everything. It's absolute, and you're right, and the way we raise meat, you should not eat any of that. I mean, think of what you're taking into your body when you eat that meat of that, those pigs that have lived in that little 6 foot by 6 foot indoor pen on, grated metal their entire lives.
And pigs are smart too. They're smart animals. I got to tell you a story. I had a good friend of mine who was just driving with his son, and they came up upon a pig truck with the pigs stuffed in, and they were going to slaughter.
Uh-huh.
And he said his son started to cry. He said you could look at the pigs and they knew they were going to their death. And he said he pulled over and threw up, which is really crazy. And he's not a vegan. He's not like a bleeding heart guy. He just said it was so palpable how evil it was that they were being treated, these pigs. And that's the thing. You don't want to, it's impossible to avoid though. Like I do buy meat from this really cool farm up north in Arizona. Mm-hmm. But it's impossible to avoid this dog food, man. I mean, it just, I live here. I've got to eat. I go to the grocery store. I try to, but, unless you're like you, which is completely self-sufficient, it's really hard to avoid. It must be like a really freeing and relaxing thing to know that no matter what, I can at least eat.
Well, so growing food. So I did not get into this because I'm like a hippie or any farmer's daughter or anything like that. But I will tell you, I got into it out of fear and panic, but it absolutely, it heals you on every single level. So on the emotional level, physical level, of course, eating, nutrient dense food, which you're right, we are in a famine right now. It's been ongoing for a long time. That's going to help you tremendously. I say the process of growing food is actually more health beneficial than eating the products because you're out in the sunlight and you're involved with the wind and the water and the soil and electronics. All right, electronics and soil and water don't mix, so you leave that in the house. Oh my God, imagine how good that is for you.
Yeah.
And so physically, like, in my past, there were allergies and all kinds of other medical things, and they're way gone now. There's none of that. Emotionally, you're absolutely right. I mean, I am not at all concerned about grocery stores. I go to the grocery store for toilet paper or paper towels or stuff like that, for very rarely for anything else. My main concerns when the grocery store closes is going to be everybody else who isn't prepared. Right. But I mean, there is a sense of peace and calm about that because not only do I know how to grow food, I'm able to be in a position of service to my community to help my neighbors and friends, to be able to turn this thing around. So emotionally, mentally, reams and reams of studies that show that when you eat higher quality food, you score higher on intelligence tests. And that's a no-brainer. When you have all the nutrients you need, everything functions a lot better. And then spiritually, you're working directly with forces of creation. I mean, really, and regardless of what flavor of spirituality, which religion or whatever, I mean, you're working directly with creation. And I'm going to tell you, there's like amazing things will happen to you. All kinds of crazy. You're like, wow, that's that's wonderful. So it heals you on all of the Maslow's hierarchy, and it's just, it's the most wonderful thing. Even if we weren't in the apocalypse and going through collapse and all that, I would still be growing my own food because it's just such a wonderful activity. I think I even saw somewhere in the WEF materials a while back, they were talking about their vision of the future. And they were saying, oh, gardening would only be a hobby for the extremely wealthy. Like,
Wow.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's the most. That's the well, the money. I mean, they're all pretty important, but the food, having control of the food. Wasn't there a quote like with that asshole? I think Stalin said something about control. Who controls the food controls the people, or something like that. I mean,
Oh, all of them. I mean, it's very well
yeah,
known.
yeah,
Very
yeah,
well known.
yeah,
The
yeah.
Romans, give them bread and games and they'll never revolt.
That's right.
Kissinger, you control the food, you control the people. There's also one about controlling the money and that. But food is essential. Um,
Well, let's go
there's
back.
also,
Where are you?
yeah.
Oh, good. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, ask. We're
No,
going to
no, no.
riff
I'm
for a
sorry.
second.
Please, please. The audience is going to hate me if I cut you off. You're going to say something.
I was just going to talk about one of the consequences of a lack of food,
Hmm.
like even though a lack of the stuff that people think is food. I got very interested in, this was about maybe 15, 20 years ago, in why do riots happen? I think it was when we were invading Iraq, and I'd never been very political, but I was like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Why aren't people seeing through this bullshit and out in the street rioting over this ridiculousness, right? It was my own awakening process, I guess. Yeah. and and then I said, well, what causes riots anyway? Like, what does cause people to riot? And it turns out I'm not the only one who asked that question. And when you ask a question to the universe and you say, I really want to know the answer to
Hmm.
this, the universe will help you if you keep an open heart and an open mind and be aware that the answer may come from anywhere, right? And
Hmm.
that's, and you get the answer. So I'm
You'll
not
literally
normally
be on YouTube and a video will just pop up why riots happen. Like it's very
some
strange.
it's
Yeah.
it's yeah. So I was on an MIT website, right? An MIT Technology Review website, which is not at all where I normally go. Somehow, how you end up on the internet somewhere.
Hmm.
And there was one of the articles was the cause of riots, and it was being done by the Institute for Complex Systems was the one who was organizing this study. And being the Institute for Complex Systems, they thought it would be very complex, right? Riots, people, governments, all kinds of stuff. And they were shocked when they found out it came down to one variable. Now, the superficial thing might be because some politician screwed a girl, or some black guy shot a white guy. There's always some, you know, superficial level. The underlying factor in all of it is the price of food. And these guys, went ahead and created a calculation and created a model, and they accurately predicted the Arab Spring, like a couple of weeks ahead of time. And
Really?
they were trying to figure out, like, what's the phone number to call the U.S. government to let them know, there's going to be an uprising coming. They couldn't get, they were like, what do we do with this information? They couldn't go anywhere with it. But I'm absolutely certain that that's something like the WEF or most of your higher level CEOs, which is kind of like the modern royalty, they know that they're aware of this, and certainly they model it, and they know exactly when violence is going to break out, and it's related to food. The Institute for Complex Systems goes, oh my God, there's only one variable, and it made sense to me, like Joe's six pack sitting on the couch. The only time he's going to get off that couch is when he doesn't have a six pack anymore and he can't, his kids are hungry or whatever, he can't eat. He's going to go out and riot. So There are, a lot of consequences to this, even when the toxic food supply or the toxic supply goes. So you know, we're in a world of hurt.
Yeah, the food. I mean, they'd say 7% inflation, 8% bullshit. Meat is doubled where I'm at. Don't
Hmm.
tell me 7-8%. Get the hell out of here. To go buy, if you want to buy a Coke, it's $3 now. It was like $1.80, which was high anyway. Like last year. Don't tell me it's 7%. It's nonsense. Yeah, it's interesting. Where like I said, they've flooded this country. It's so the cities are such a mess. It's going to be interesting. Like you said, if people, I always say the reason why nobody's writing is because the suffering factor isn't high enough yet. People need to be hungry. That's pretty much it. I mean,
That's
if you're
pretty
hungry, that's
much.
when you're gonna get. Um, okay, so where are you from? Where were you born and raised? Like, how did you get into this?
Yeah, so I grew up in North Miami, Florida, in a suburb,
Oh,
and
nice.
my parents were artists. My dad was an artist, and my mom a photographer, which means we were pretty poor. But if you're going to be poor, being poor in South Florida's and being poor in the United States, like let's face it, that's not really. As I've traveled the world, I'm realizing we really didn't have it that hard. But
Hold
coming
on,
from
hold on.
a
Let me
family.
pause on that though, because it can be way more. It can be very stressful. Because at least because I've been all over the third world too, not all over, but in a lot of places, and you go in these little communities and they're dirt poor, literally dirt on the floor, but they have plenty of food and they have a good community and people are happy. Here, being poor, like your ass is going to be out in the garbage can. You know what I mean? Like you can really be out in your ass here. So it's very stressful living here, even though, like you said, the creature comforts, the air conditioning, and the houses are bigger, but it's one thing I'd push back on. It's just it's a very cold place, the U.S. But anyways, go ahead. I cut you off.
It is. Yeah, there's just a very been very intentional breakdown of
Yeah,
familial bonds and community
that's
bonds,
right. That's right.
and it's been very intentional. Being a mother of two, and man, I wasn't a year into motherhood, and I was like, the nuclear family is the most fucked up thing we've ever tried to create in our entire life. It was horrible. I did the best I could. Um, yeah, so I grew up in North Miami, but I had, I was always interested in money. I wanted to make money. And um, I ended up getting an engineering degree because I was also really interested in how I want to know how the universe works, right? And especially interested in energy. I ended up getting a degree in electrical engineering, which I was so disappointed. I didn't even go to the graduation. I was like, this I've just spent, I don't know, it took me a little while, about 6 years to do this thing. And these people, I mean, I learned some useful stuff and mathematics and physics and all that, but these people really don't know anything about energy. And I'm like, when I get older, I'm going to redesign this whole curriculum for them, but I don't know what's missing. And I'm ready to get out and get a job and make some money. I guess. So I said, went out and I ended up working ultimately for Motorola, and this was like the late '80s. And always wanted to live overseas. Also, I really wanted to see the rest of the world, and I became an expat for Motorola in Hong Kong, and I was managing. Actually, I had a couple of teams of engineers, really, really great guys for the cellular mobile telephone networks. And this is back in the days when the things were like a brick, with a big
Yeah, yeah,
antenna on it. Yeah,
yeah. American
yeah,
Psycho. American Psycho.
yeah.
That movie where he's got the phone. Yeah.
Oh, you see, you're going to know all the movies. I'm not.
Oh,
I'm not
okay.
that movie person, but you bring that in. That's good. Anyway, I was managing. We had a network, um, and the guys, Hong Kong Chinese are very, very, very capitalistically minded. They are really into money too, and a couple of the guys that work for me say, Marjorie, you got to go. You got to go. There's this guy named Robert who has a really amazing workshop. You got to go do it. And I said, do we know anything about this guy named Robert? And they're like, no, we never heard of him, but he's really good. So I go anyway. And this guy, Robert, just blew my mind with like distinctions about wealth and money and the stuff you're never going to learn in school. And it ultimately inspired me to leave engineering and create a real estate investment business. I chose the Austin, Texas market. It was also about time I wanted to become a mother and found a partner and husband, and we were doing all that. And super, super happy. I mean, I'm way in the matrix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Made my first million before I was 40.
Mm-hmm.
Super, super happy. And the business was so successful that Robert asked me if I would be the lead testimonial on some of his infomercials.
Wait, who's this Robert guy? What's his last name? Do we know who he is? Or can you
Yeah,
say?
Kiyosaki.
Oh, I blew the. I'm sorry, I blew the punchline.
No,
My
no,
bad.
you didn't. No, you
Okay.
didn't. Yeah, so for 4 years I
He
was
lives here,
on.
by the way. He lives in Scottsdale. I think he's got his
That's
office in
right.
Scottsdale. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he and Kim, they split up. But I actually went there for one of the shoots, for one of the versions. They do several versions of these videos, and they say the time, the like an infomercial that this was like 2000 and 2002. It only has about a 2 year before it runs out, and the returns are dropping from it. So they had me do it a couple of times with them, and
Mm-hmm.
then the second time I flew out to Scottsdale with Kim and Robert. Yeah. So I mean, I'm crushing it, right? And I'm like, okay, I made my first million, and now the next thing I want to do is make 10 million, and then 100 million. I mean, this is right. I mean, this is.
This is
I was.
80s, 90s when everything seemed like it worked and everything was really good and there was this giant freedom machine and America was the number one and everything was great. I got it. Yeah.
It was a game, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm winning. I'm having a
Yeah.
good time here.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I went. I'm always been somewhat community minded, and I was volunteering on this project that I had no idea that my life was going to completely and utterly change. And I will never forget that one night when it happened. And so let me step back. One of my friends and neighbors was Steve Bridges, who was the president of the Texas Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association. And Steve had this dream, this vision of getting, local organic produce into the school system at all the schools across Texas. And I said, well, Steve, let's, we picked this one little rural elementary school in Red Rock, Texas, not too far out of Austin. And we said, let's do it there. And then we'll McDonald it all over the state. Like, let's get it all figured out. And we had some real great movers and shakers volunteering on this thing, which is not normally true of a volunteer organization.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'll never forget the night when the whole thing failed. And I'd organized the meeting at Red Rock Community Center. And what the issue fundamentally was there were not enough local organic farmers to provide even part of the vegetables for one small rural elementary school. And this was in all of Bastrop County, right next to Austin. And Texas has some big counties, but there just wasn't enough locally grown food for one small rural elementary school. And it hit me. I'm like, wow, there's 4 days worth of food in the grocery stores. There's the just-in-time trucking system is 1,500 miles is the average distance your food travels to get to you. I'm surrounded by 20 million Texans who are armed to the teeth. And at that point, I realized that there are scenarios where no amount of wealth will do, that is not wealth. There's no amount of money that would buy you what you need. There could be scenarios. And the more I look at the system, if you start looking at this, you're going to go, oh my God, I can't believe it hasn't broken yet, right? It's so incredibly fragile. So I was shaking so violently for hours. I mean, it was
Really?
it was, I mean, because I had two small kids, and all of a sudden the drive from Austin to Red Rock, it's one of those rural drives. And in the back of your mind, if you live in the city, you're kind of thinking, hey, if stuff goes bad, we're going to go out in the countryside and get food from the farmers, right? That's kind of what goes on in your mind when you're a rural, city person. And the drive made sense. There's no farms out there. Here's a new Dollar General, and here's a new subdivision, and here's just a big forested area. All the farms are gone. And I literally had nightmares and panic attacks for years because I could see that, that 9 days to, they call it 9 days to anarchy. I don't know if anarchy is the best word for it. That's probably a programming thing from the WEF, but everything could collapse in 9 days because we don't have, the average person just doesn't have that much food, and there's not much food. And I just said, that's it. There's lots of people who know how to make money. I made a lot of money and I could make more money. There's lots of people who know how to do that. That's not what is needed. There are very, very, very few people on this planet that know how to grow food anymore. And I knew it had to be backyard food production because, like, what do you do what do you do, right? Not like, oh, I'm going to support the farmers. It's like, what do you do when this happens, right? So, yeah, so I basically sold the whole real estate business. We ended up moving out to Red Rock and buying a place out there, and started learning everything I could about growing food. All kinds of gardening classes and homesteading workshops, and citizen forester, orchards, permaculture design certifications, hanging out with barefoot crazies in the national forests, because those guys are not starving. They know what they're doing.
Uh-huh.
There is a culture of people that live semi-wild in the national forests. So
Really? How did you find them?
yeah, the way I ended up connecting up with them was there's a thing called primitive skills gatherings, and there's two of the oldest that have ever been created, and one is called Rabbit Stick, and it's in outside of Rexburg, Idaho, and the other one is called Winter Count. I think they've recently transferred the ownership of that, but that's south of Phoenix, and these were a bunch of people who are keeping alive the skills that would have been common knowledge in the Paleolithic era, gather, right? And some of these people who just live out in the wilderness areas come into those kind of gatherings to, they've been tanning deer hides or making interesting things, or, harvesting unusual or rare plants or things. And they come in to trade and to get Federal Reserve notes to buy stuff that they need. And that's kind of one of their points of connection in with civilization.
So you just go there and meet them and buy stuff off them, basically, and then do they give courses and stuff like that? 'Cause
They
I've
often
seen that
did. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that where you go like for like 3 days, and the guy will teach you how to like basically survive in the woods or whatever. I
Well,
thought about doing one of those.
yeah, these gatherings they were originally formed by people who are teaching these outdoor survival skills, and the teachers all wanted to get together to share with each other. And so it was initially only founded based on people who were really already highly skilled, wanting to just trade skills with each other. And so the quality of what you went there for. And they were really lovely, lovely gatherings. It wasn't just one guy. You could sign up for whatever you want in the morning. They'd have announcements, and there'd be like 15 or 20 different, so offerings of somebody's going to teach this or somebody's going to teach that. And, meet me in the Royo on the other side of the blue van, or, meet me under the big oak tree by the fire pit. That's kind of how it goes. And you go there and you learn how to make rope or how to make cordage. And a lot of those skills, in some ways, they're not practical. Like, yes, I can start a fire by friction, and my husband used to always teach me. He goes, I got a big lighter, and I'm like, yeah, I know, but you have such an appreciation for, first of all, for rope. Learning how to make rope. I am so appreciative of being able to buy 100 yards of paracord for $10. Because I know what it would take to make 100 yards of a rope that has a 1,000-pound test. And I'm going to tell you, it doesn't come easy,
Yeah.
or to make a fire, to have the skills to do that. So it was wonderful. I did it. I was homeschooling my daughter, to some extent, my son, he didn't go to these, but it was also a wonderful time for us to bond, and she learned all these skills, and we played cave women for the week. And yeah, so that's where I met them. And I didn't like just buy stuff from them to meet them. It was, I'd learn from them or give, what I had was Federal Reserve notes that I could offer. And then they had skills or things that they could teach or things that they could, sell. And I wanted to support them. And, yeah, so anyway, it's a real, it's more of a friendship and relationship based vibe there. I would say it's quite a great example of anarchy, honestly.
So you buy a property. How big of a property did you buy in Texas?
75 acres, and we didn't know anything, and we bought this. Had no water. It was almost all just pure sand. There were only like 4 different species on the property, and like no biodiversity at all. But we fell in love with it. We did the classic thing of, you see a piece of land and you love it, and didn't have much infrastructure on it. We raised the kids in the barn until we could build the house, and it was just what I wanted to do. That was a lovely life. But really, like, if you're going to learn to grow food, that was one of the harshest environments to put yourself in. I later learned.
So how long did it take you before you're basically like I know it came in steps, but like how did that go? What was the
You know,
timeline there?
yeah, initially it was really, really hard because, like I
Hmm.
said, there was no fertility and no water, and we had to figure all of that out. And I had none of those skills. You know, I mean, a little while ago I was signing $1 million check, and now here I am in front of a tomato plant crying because the thing died. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So it took. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out the principles of what and hanging out with really successful gardeners or hanging out with really successful livestock, farmers or ranchers, and what do they do and how do they do it, and and a lot of them, interestingly enough, like Brandon, this wonderful neighbor, had this amazing garden all the time. Like his broccoli was just like, woohoo, I'm happy to be alive, and my broccoli had just died. And he honestly couldn't tell you why, but I figured it out. It was like, yeah, you're gardening in 2 feet of composted horse manure, and I'm gardening in sand. Soil makes a huge difference.
Hmm.
The quality of your soil. In fact, if you want to have a green thumb, really, really good soil is the key. That's the key to a green thumb. Uh, so yeah, and
How did you get your soil turned around? How long did it take?
it took a while. Sometimes we just bought it because you could buy a dump truck
Uh-huh.
load. We went to a place that grew mushrooms, and then when they got done with it, the spent mushroom compost was fabulous stuff. And then I spent a lot of years growing cover crops, and then cutting them down. Or livestock is unbelievable. Like you can run rabbits or cattle or sheep or almost anything over land, and it's amazing how quickly they will help, really, because there's that cycle, the nutrient cycling of the animals. They
Hmm.
eat grass or feed or what you're giving them, and they're breathing air like us, but nitrogen is a waste product for you and I and most animals, but it's like what plants really want. And so their feces, and managing their feces is just incredible. So you're managing the nutrient cycling. Now, if you do it, and I had like the equivalent at that property of like 6 different backyards because I was trying different. I've always been interested in backyard food production, right? What do common people do? I didn't really want to be a commercial farmer because the regulations are insane. Let Joel Salatin handle that.
Hmm.
He's good at arguing about all that stuff. But I wanted to, because there's no real regulations for backyard producers, and so I was always experimenting with this and that and the other, and um, yeah, livestock rotating in or being a part of your system will really amp up things tremendously. And so you can build soil. But if you're like looking to get out of town, which hopefully you are, and you don't need a lot of land, we can talk about how much you need.
Yeah,
But
let's talk
one of the
about that. Go ahead.
okay,
But no, keep going what
uh,
you're doing. Keep going where you're going. Sorry.
well, if you're going to buy a property, the
Hmm.
number one thing to look for is make sure you have, I would say, at least 3 sources of water. So almost any roof you can turn into rainwater collection. Drill a well if you can, and you can almost always do that. Do an illegal one; it's faster, easier, and cheaper. Um, uh, oh no, I didn't recommend something that's illegal, did I?
So you should have three sources of water for
Yeah,
you. Is that
yeah.
naturally occurring, or like how does that work? How do you know if you have three sources of water?
Well, like a well, a pond, a year-round stream, rainwater collection,
Okay.
those kind of things. But city water, you can probably count it as one. But city water is horrible. They put so many chemicals into it.
Hmm.
It will kill things. So it's not the best. You can filter it, but it's also completely unreliable. I mean, in any kind of scenario, the water is going to get cut off. So, um, so make sure it has water. The other is really try to get something with really good soil if you can. Soil, you can always make soil and you can grow soil. It just takes a while, and if you can buy soil and fix it that way, that's okay, because then you'll keep maintaining that soil. But in the United States, we're a relatively new country, and every area that was settled first had really good soil. So, Austin was around a river area. Usually around rivers, there's lots of great soil deposits. Kentucky, fabulous, fabulous soils, but all these, and of course, people went there because they knew back in those days, if you didn't grow your own food, you weren't eating, right? The
Hmm.
settlers, right? You had to grow your own food, and growing food, having good soil and having water was the two requirements for really good food. And that's where Austin, for example, I lived so close to it for so long. It eventually became this thing that's all concreted over and big, and now it's this gigantic, million plus MSA. And the countryside is now all these areas that nobody really would have settled before because it's not that great a soil. So chances are you don't have good soil. So you will learn about it. You'll learn about composting.
How do you know if you're buying a place with good soil? I guess is just get online and kind of figure out.
Well, sand is clearly not good soil, and we
That's
all
what
know
I'm
what
around.
sand looks
I'm in
like.
Arizona, so yeah, there's sand
Yeah.
everywhere. The soil's terrible.
And the clay is not a real good thing. You have that red
Mm.
clay, orange clay. Black clay, surprisingly, can be fixed and has a lot of nutrients in it, but clay is hard because then there's no aeration. And so, good soil is that, when you smell it and it's got that great earthy scent and it's got a lot of like organic matter in there and it's got a mixture of sand and clay, uh, that's really good soil. So,
How
yeah.
much land do you have to start with? What's the minimum you think?
Well, I teach people a very simple system in their backyard, in a backyard size space. And I'm used to thinking of a backyard as a quarter acre. It's astonished me how they build these gigantic houses on nothing now and call it a backyard. But
Hmm.
say a quarter acre, and your house is plunked in a little bit of that or some of that. You can easily produce, as a beginner, about half of the food you need in a backyard size space. And you'll be able to increase that production um, over as the soils develop and as your skills develop. So as a beginner, you can produce about half. And I've documented this whole system in a free webinar. If I can do a pitch for a free
Yeah,
webinar,
please do. Yeah,
always be pitching, right?
yeah.
I'm going to tell you, teaching people to grow food has been I've been in survival for 20 years because I've been told that this is what I need to do, and it is not a lucrative business. So anyway, go to backyard food production. Oh, I see you've got it in my Chiron there. Backyardfoodproduction.com, and I have a free webinar. I just tightened it up and shortened it. So in 45 minutes, I will show you in a backyard size space how to produce half of your own food. And I go through the calories. I show you how long everything takes, and really it's about less than a half an hour a day. And it's a very simple three component system. And we can go into that some here. But basically, you don't need a lot of land. And it's actually better to have a small amount of land because there's so much you can do as you get going. You can go vertical and you can layer and you can start utilizing all kinds of spaces you wouldn't have thought about. And having something be smaller means it's going to be a lot easier for you to manage. Um, my husband, when we started, his grandmother Nanny had grown up knee high to a grasshopper with her parents and out in the countryside and grew food. And by the time she was a mature adult, she was managing an acre of food very, very easily. And when my husband was growing up, he thought, oh, when you think of growing food, you think of Nanny, you think of an acre. Well, he plowed up an acre, and we had an acre of sand. I had an acre of weeds and frustration. An acre is way too much.
Really?
Really just start small. In fact, if you're going to do a garden, I recommend a raised bed with two cinder blocks high, 50 square foot each, and start out with just two of those, and you'll be able to grow a lot of your own produce just in that. You don't need a lot of space. So, yeah,
Chickens,
backyard.
obviously, you're going to want livestock too, right? Obviously, chickens are good because of the eggs.
Yeah, you're right on it. Yeah, so that's one of the biggest myths everybody talks about. They think, oh, I'm going to grow a garden, and actually, the garden is the least productive. Well, not least productive, but animal products by far are much easier and more productive to produce food and nutrients than vegetables and chickens. And we'll go through the chickens real quick. I recommend in your backyard 6 laying hens,
Okay.
and you can put that in. You can build a chicken coop in a run in like 2 or 3 weeks. There's an example of what it looks like in the webinar, and I've also got links for all kinds of designs. And if you're even halfway handy with carpentry, you can build this thing. And if not, you get somebody to build it, or you can get kits that are like, oh my God, I would live in one of those. You can go nuts with these things. Um, 6 laying hens, and I recommend you buy the laying hens at age. So about 6 months old is when they're laying. I don't recommend getting baby chicks because then you got to work for 6 months to get the birds to laying eggs. Go out, Craigslist, feed stores. You can get 6 laying hens. Put them in the coop. Make sure you've got food and water for them. By the way, there are lots of ways to provide the feed for the chickens sustainably that you can do it, but don't do that from the get-go. Start with chicken feed because right now it still costs chicken feed. Um, uh, and it's going to, you got a lot to learn. You got a lot to figure out. There's a new lifestyle adjustment you're going to be doing. Do phase 1 of where you get the birds going and you're starting to produce eggs, and phase 2 will be figuring out how to produce all the food for the birds. And I just want to let you know that you absolutely can do it. When you sign up for the free webinar there, we'll send you a video made from a friend of mine, Justin Rhodes, who has how to create 100% of your chicken feed for free. So he's made a video. We send you in an email, we'll send you a link on how to get to that. So, but if you think about it, it takes a couple of weeks to get the chicken coop built and source the chickens and the hens and the feed and the water. It takes a couple of days for the hens to get settled in. You just move them and they're not going to lay for you for a little bit. But then, bam, you've got, like, in a couple of weeks, you have, well, let me go back to the quantity. So your average laying hen is going to lay an egg, medium-sized egg is about 62 calories. And I did get that from the USDA. There's one thing useful I got out of the government. Anyway, an average laying hen will lay about 250 eggs in a year.
So,
And
what? Do you collect them every week, every day? Like, how does that work?
you can wait a while, but I like to do it every day. You can
Okay.
do it every 2 or 3 days. You're going to probably want to do it every day because you want to get in the routine of going and checking on them, checking their water, checking their feed, seeing how they're doing.
Well, like six
You know,
chickens, how many eggs do you get in a week?
well, here's 250 eggs that you'll
Okay.
get in a year.
Okay.
And the reason it's not 365 is they take some time off if it's too hot or too cold, or every now and then they go through this thing called molting where they get rid of all their feathers and they grow some new feathers. So
Okay.
they're not 24/7. But if you think about it, 6 laying hens, 250 eggs a year, that's 1,500 eggs in a year.
Hmm.
And that's going to be 3 egg omelets for you for every morning for breakfast, plus 33 dozen eggs for you to give away or trade or
Yeah.
have in other recipes. So within 3 weeks, you can have breakfast handled for the rest of your life. You know, like how hard is that?
And plus, it's like I feel like with eggs, like if you, we'll get into this because I have I'm in a condo now, but I'm looking for land. But if I do microgreens, my thing is if you could have chickens and at least microgreens, you could actually, if the shit does hit the fan, you're not going to be standing in line for government cheese. You'll be able to get through it, right? Because you
Yeah,
got the
no,
protein, you got the fat, you got the veg.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because fat is the hardest macronutrient to produce. And then the next one is protein. And so you go in your garden, there's no fatty vegetables in there. There's
Right.
like no pre-buttered eggplant. It's just not there. So yeah, so get some laying hens. And again, I go through all of this in that webinar. By the way, show even if you're not, and so you're in an apartment, and people often ask me, what do I do? Like apparently
Yeah.
50% of our population is within cities.
Yeah.
Um, Quail are like little bitty chickens, and I set a girlfriend up with a quail cage system in her apartment, and she has 3 different cages, and she basically has 10 quail, and she's getting about 10 quail eggs a day, sometimes 9, and quail eggs are not as big as chicken eggs, but it's basically breakfast for her every day. 10 quail eggs is a pretty good breakfast. So, and
Really?
they're not,
Quail.
yeah, they're not exactly songbirds, but they're not unpleasant. And, like any bird or any livestock in the house, or dogs or cats or anything, you got to kind of keep up with the maintenance on them, but it's not an unpleasant smell or anything. I mean, they're Yeah, you can
Are
have
they
quail in
loud?
your
Do they,
apartment.
what do they, I don't even know what noise the quail makes. Are they
Yeah,
loud? Because
like I said, they're not real loud, and
okay.
they're not songbirds, but they're not it's not obnoxious or annoying or anything. It's, when they're young, especially, they're really sweet, but later on they get a little more. I wish I could imitate them, but I'm not good at that one.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so you could put
Okay.
quail in there, and yeah, you could get started right away.
What do you think about my? Obviously, you can grow like vegetables on your in your house and stuff like that. What do you think about my microgreens plan? Because I actually have a
I'm
setup in my closet. I haven't been doing them during the summer because I haven't been craving vegetables. I eat fruit during the summer here; it's so hot. But I'm sorry. What do you think about that?
I love it. I think it's a great way to get started. Now, in a serious grid down scenario, you're not going to be able to get the seeds, which is
Right.
what the microgreens are dependent on. But it's something you can do, and getting started in any way is
That's right.
hugely important, and especially Stacy Murphy. She's like became this huge gardening expert. She started in Brooklyn, just growing what you're just talking about, growing sprouts in her Brooklyn apartment. So, it can take you lots of places.
I mean, I got it all set up. I kind of got it like dialed in a little bit. I started with 4 trays a week, but it was actually too much food. So now I cut it down to 2 trays, and I mean, it provides my vegetables for the week. And I could do it with the sun too. It's not like I do have the lights in there in case there's like a grid down type deal. But I'd never grown anything food for myself in my whole life, which is embarrassing. My grandfather was actually a Simmental cattle farmer, and I used to go and work in the farm. They never taught me anything. It was just scream at me and tell me to bale hay. But it was a good experience. But I never grown any food for myself. I'm like, I gotta start step one of this 1,000-step journey and do something, So I just started with the microgreens. It was kind of cool. It's kind of cool to grow your own food and eat your own food. It feels good.
It for sure is. You could actually use those extra microgreens and feed the quail. Or I met one woman in West Plains, Missouri, and she kept rabbits in the house, and she grew all of the food for not all of it. I guess she bought some hay sometimes, but she grew microgreens and like barley and wheatgrass and stuff like that for the rabbits, and had the rabbits in the house. I'm like, okay, that might be a little too close for me, but it was working for her.
Did she execute and eat the rabbits?
Yeah.
That was the plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How do you kill
Actually,
them? Do you kill them yourself?
I do. I have rabbits, and I have them out I'm in a small rental, and I have a very small front yard here, and I've built special, we call them tractors, which is just a fancy name for a nice big cage that has a fenced bottom so they can't dig through, but the grass can come up through. And so I move it around on the grass every day or every other day, and that helps supplements the feed that I'm giving them. Yeah, and I have like 1 buck, and right now I have 1 buck and 2 breeding does, and that produces for me like 40 or 50 rabbits a year. I recommend people do 3 breeding does and a buck to start out, and that'll produce you like 75 to 85 rabbits a year. And a rabbit is entirely equivalent to a chicken. All your chicken recipes you can swap out a rabbit for. They're really, well, they breed like rabbits. They're real prolific. There was a huge explosion of rabbit production that happened in the 1970s in the US, because I don't know if you remember that decade. That was a pretty dicey decade too. We went off the gold standard. There was all kinds of craziness going on in the world. There was the oil embargo. I mean, there was
Jimmy
lines
Carter.
around the block.
Jimmy Carter, yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff in that decade, and there were people heading out to the hills like crazy, like this is it.
Yeah.
And we've been on the edge of economic collapse for ever since before I was born, and a lot of people thought that was it. And I actually think it's it now.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, but rabbits, that was the last. I mean, there was a bunch of people got into rabbits because it's a really easy.
Well, I have so many questions for you. So the chickens, I've heard if you raise the chickens for eggs that you can't really eat them. Like, is there a point when you eat them, or do they go? I heard they just are not tasty anymore at a certain point. Is that true?
No, you can eat them. Actually, no, that's quite the opposite. Actually, most people didn't used to eat chickens until they got well into their older age, and most animals weren't eaten until the concept of eating young animals is a new thing. been introduced with this whole uh, modern food production system. But the flavors of an older hen or the flavors of an older beef are, or it's really used to be considered like that was the most amazing thing, like the giblets. You can't get that from younger chickens. So you do. Now, chickens will lay, the industry kills them off at about 2 years or 2.5 years, because that is like the maximum point at which their production. And then after that, it starts to drop off.
Okay.
Most of us that are homesteaders, you get attached to your hens and they're your friends and you just let them go until they die of something or get predated or something like that. Some people will, kill them at 5 or something, and egg production does drop, but after a while. By the way, raising chickens and collecting eggs used to be children's work. That was what children did. And if you've got small kids, and I'm talking to whoever's listening to this, they love it. They love it. And I had my kids, they'd collect the eggs every day and they'd bring them in, and we taught them how to make omelets and how to hard boil and how to, you'd keep teaching them how to cook. And they were responsible for the chickens and feeding them and watering them. And they do a really good job with that. And it's important work for the whole family. You want to remind them of how important work it is to be feeding the family and participating in the family's food supply. And kids want to do useful work. They want to do meaningful work. Start them young. I had my kids washing dishes when they were, 3 years old. They could barely stand up, 2 years old. They want to work. They want to help, and let them do that. Don't give them those electronics. So,
well, that's the thing. When I take my daughter, obviously does a lot of electronics. In fact, she's got like a YouTube channel. It's got like crazy amount of followers and stuff. But when I take her out, it's really wild. When I take her out I used to live in this neighborhood here in town that had this like, what do they call that when it was like the permit for free range chickens? It was grandfathered in, is what I was trying to say. So this neighborhood had chickens everywhere. It was in the city. And there was not swans, but peacocks everywhere and rabbits everywhere. It was like this weird thing. It's called Arcadia. And when we'd go out and like play with the chickens and the bunnies and stuff, she like her whole, at first she didn't want to get away from the electronics, but once you get them out there and they're in there, she would just go into this state of calm, and just like focusing on the animals. And it's just a natural state where we're supposed to be, I think.
It's so true. Yeah. My kids would quit arguing and doing the things that siblings do when we got them outside working or camping or anywhere in nature, where there was no cell signal. Yeah.
So what should people do? What's the, I know you have what's the name of your website? I can't see because I'm blind, farsighted.
Backyardfoodproduction.com.
I'll put it obviously in the show notes for the delight of the audience. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I teach people this 3-component system, and the first thing I recommend, and you can implement this any time of year and anywhere in the world, basically. I mean, I've had people do this in Alaska, and I'm doing it here, and I've done it in Texas and Colorado and Oregon and now in Puerto Rico. And I've used to have a big online community with forums that people all over the world were doing this. And gardens often are precarious. You got to get the right time for a garden. Gardens are a little more finicky. So especially if you live in like Colorado. So if it's not the right time, then I really recommend get started with chickens. And you can do that any time of year. If you live in the north, yes, you're going to have to build it with a little more insulation and, like that. Because that's the best one and the easiest one and the quickest one to start generating real calories and real nutrition, right? Those eggs are going to be really healthy. You give them your compost, you're going to feed them the best you can. You're going to let them outside and scratch and dig and eat bugs. Those are going to be real eggs that are going to have real nutrition in it. It's going to be real good food. Then when the timing is right, start a garden. And I show people like a really simple 2 raised beds, 100 square foot garden. And I go over what that produces and what it looks like and how to get started with that. And then the third thing is a home rabbitry. And that would be a buck and 3 breeding does. And each one of these components you can do in the size of like a parking lot, a parking spot. So like if you really don't have much room, you could be doing all of this in a very small yard. If you have a little bit more room, of course, it's going to be better. You can let things roam around a little bit more and have more space. But and I go through the calories. I'm like, here's 62 calories for an egg. You get 1,500 a year. That turns out to be 94,000 calories. And people, I initially got a lot of pushback on that, like calories, it's a bad word. And I'm like, no, it's about to be a unit of currency. Calories are a good thing.
Yeah. That's a good point. So you don't, in other words, if you have a very small property, don't let that inhibit you. You can still do it. My only one question is, what about all these like places that have these crazy zonings? You're not allowed to have animals. You're not allowed to have chickens. I guess you're kind of screwed there. Is there a way? I guess there might be like collectives or co-ops where you can rent a piece of property or. What do you suggest?
And that's the same thing with the gardens. There are things like sharedearth.com is one website where somebody may have a yard and you don't have any land, like you live in a condo, but you can, it's like a meeting site for people to people that want to grow food and people who have land but can't do it. Maybe they're elderly or they're not there or something.
Okay.
So there are other resources out there like that. But also, often homeowners associate, well, let me address the homeowners in the cities. Often they don't actually specify no rabbits. So there's no reason, they're quiet. Nobody's going to know. Just do it in the back, right? And oftentimes, they may say no chickens, but they didn't say anything about ducks. They didn't say anything about quail. There's we all have learned how to navigate this system. And then, of course, usually nobody has anything to say about gardens, especially if you're doing it in your backyard or you have a fence in the front. So there's one, navigate the rules. The other is, so when I first moved to Austin, if you had chickens in your backyard, people in the neighborhood hated you because you were reducing the property value, right? You're Bubbaville. Oh my God, she's got hens, And then there was a guy, bless his heart, I think his name was Selwyn Pollitt, had these 3 laying hens in his backyard. They were just lovely. They were his pets. He called them friends with benefits. And he was one of those who did it up. He really made it fun. And he just kept showing people, taking people on tours through his yard and everything. And a bunch of people started working with the city and saying, hey, we want to do this. And the city of Austin now will actually has courses and classes to help you learn how to raise chickens in your backyard, and they will give you some subsidy if you buy a chicken coop or stuff like that. And I did an interview, and it was a few years ago, with one of the city managers, and I was like, that's really progressive. Why are you doing that? Other than that Austin is like supposed to be progressive. And it was very, very, very practical. It was because they found that homeowners who had chickens had 30% less waste in their garbage, and there was less waste in the landfills, which is a huge expense for the city. So the city was very proactive in encouraging people to grow, to have chickens in their backyard because it ultimately reduced the landfill usage. So, and I saw this happen in a period. Now, I know we don't have 20 years, but I saw this happen in a period of 20 years where they went from, you're a horrible person because you have chickens to, the city not only endorsing it, but subsidizing it and funding it and teaching it. And they have this other really fun thing in Austin called the Funky Chicken Coop Tour every year, where people, they have all gotten ridiculous with it. Like they build these like little mansions for their chickens. And then once a year, there's a tour that you can go on and you can go see people's chicken mansions, basically. It's called the Funky Coop Tour.
That's
Austin.
Funny. Yeah.
Austin is just so Austin, or it used to be really, really fun. I don't know what it's turning into now, but
I've heard bad things going on there now. It's very dangerous. It's certain parts.
Yeah. So this I left a while ago, but it used to be really, really fun. The other thing is I would say just do it, and then when they're giving you a hard time, or proactively go give the HOA manager a dozen eggs from time to time.
Work it. You got to work it. Read the fine print and work it.
And eggs at $10 a dozen you know,
Insane.
people are having a different attitude toward this kind of stuff, and maybe those are the rules, but rules can be changed. Rules can be rewritten. Rules can be navigated. There's somebody else's rules. My rules are that I'm growing my own food and I'm going to figure out how to do that. So
I was in El Salvador and the eggs were like 90 cents for a dozen. And I was like, what is going on here? Is this planned? Are they purposely, I keep hearing, you see all on the internet, some coop blew up or they killed a bunch of chickens or, some cattle processing plant blew up or something. Like, what is going on? What do you think's happening?
I really wondered about that. And I watched those stories, like they slaughtered 80 million, 100 million. And I think we only have like 800 million chickens. They slaughtered a huge amount of egg layers under the guise of the avian bird flu. And I thought that was the problem. But, so the eggs went up to like $10 a dozen, which was interesting. When it got up to that price, then there were no eggs available anywhere. Right. And I thought, oh, wow, well, this is it, because, that was the key indicator for hyperinflation in Weimar, Germany. And then it really came down really cool. Like it was only like a month later that the prices came down. And I like the cheapy eggs here now are $4 a dozen, and there's an abundance of them. And I've been looking at that and going, there's something really weird about that, because it takes 6 months to get a laying hen up, and it doesn't happen in a month. It's not like a commodity like that. You can't. So I don't know there's some real weirdness going on there. I do want to talk about the hyperinflation key indicator though, because this is important. And the price of eggs spiked about 2 years ago, if you remember, and then it went back down and stayed down. This time it's spiked up, and now it's not gone all the way down. It's still,
It's super pricey here. They're $10 here, depending on, every once in a while you have a sale or something, but generally decent eggs. You can buy the shit Hickman eggs for like $6-7. But go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So here the good eggs are about $10 a dozen, sometimes 11, 12, depending on the farmer. And the really cheapy, I mean, they used to be $1.50 or now $4 a dozen. So this is, some of the Puerto Rico numbers are, in some things are, it's interesting here. Some things are cheaper. It's a little more Latin American. So in 1922, it was 1922 in Weimar, Germany, people were really complaining because the price of eggs had tripled. They were 3 marks for a dozen, and they had normally been like 1 mark. And that took like a 2-year period or so. And then, which is kind of what happened. That was in like January of 1922. By October, and this is what happens and how fast it happens. By October of that year, a dozen eggs was 1 billion marks.
That just means the currency doesn't work anymore, basically.
Right. But the other, there's no there's no internet, there's no smartphones. This is just, this is 1922. I don't think even people had a lot of radios or anything. You know what I mean? Like, hyperinflation can happen that fast.
That's the definition of it. I mean, once it starts to uncoil, it's like the coil. The more it uncoils, the faster it goes.
Yep, right. It's the whole downward spiral, upward spiral, whatever you want to call it. But for me, the key indicator always was the price of eggs, because that's kind of like a baseline food that's important to everybody. It's just sort of like bread. They often talk about beer. I don't drink beer, so it's not a number I ever track or worry about. And I believe that we are that's this year for the United States, because, we have had that spike, and I believe we've had the same managers, right? And they show you what they're going to do. They repeat the same patterns. And I think that we're in that same exact pattern as Weimar, Germany. And I think the next big inflationary, oh my goodness, there's the Fed just gave the banks another $5.5 trillion to create. Elon Musk has found the Doge team, regardless of whatever that story is. They found these magic computers that just make money. And I mean, if they found one of them, you should be disturbed. They found 14 of them, and they don't know how much these have made. They're estimating.
Well, this at this point is a looting operation. That's all this is.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's this is they spend forever, like Bix light year or whatever, light year and beyond, to infinity and beyond. I think the next really big, like where the consumers are going to see it and where it's going to be the real ignition for the flame for hyperinflation on the boots on the ground level is the last ships with inventory from China that was at the original tariff levels, the lower tariff levels, arrived in early May. And so right now, we're living on inventory that was bought prior to the whole Liberation Day experience, right? So I don't know how long that inventory it takes for that, the sausage to go through. But there are two things, and all the CEOs of all the major Amazon, Walmart, Target, all of these things, 80% of their inventory comes from China. And any business that has your inventory suddenly increase, their wholesale rate increase by 30%, there's going to be an economic stop thing right there. But all of those CEOs of all those companies have said, hey, you will see empty shelves and you will see skyrocketing prices. So I'm just watching. I kind of do a scan all the time on YouTube and X and all the different, wherever, looking for empty shelves. And it has not hit yet, but that is going to hit. And I believe that will absolutely be that spark for that upward spiral, because people are going to go, oh my God, that just went 30%. And, where am I going to get it? And there is a famine that's been orchestrated over many years that's about to hit. So,
you're going to be eating Zog boxed food. You're going to be, you're going to be eating, you're not, that's where you're going to be. You're making me nervous, but it's just like, it takes so much time. Right now I'm learning land, and I got to figure out what to buy and how to buy it. And then I need to get something though.
But you've already gotten started, right? You've got the sprouts going. You could do a couple more pots in the windowsill. You could, you could get a couple more plants going. You are looking for land. You're looking for your place. I mean, you know what I mean? You're doing it. You're taking the steps. And I know it sounds overwhelming, but it is overwhelming. This is the friggin' apocalypse we're in here. You know what one of the four horsemen is, don't you?
Tell me.
Famine.
Oh, yeah. What's the other three?
It's death, war, famine, pestilence. I think the pestilence was the one that was orchestrated, and if you were smart enough, you could avoid that by not, getting your shot.
Yeah.
There's going to be more ramifications of the pestilence coming here soon.
I think it's been happening, and it's just the way that they orchestrated it was so tricky that they can. It's like shake and move, duck and cover. Like you can't really put your finger at it. It's like, oh, this person died of a heart attack. I'm like, well, wait, what? A 40-year-old person died of a heart attack? That doesn't make any sense. There's there's meme after meme of somebody's like, get the shot, asshole, or something like that, or you dummies or something. Then the right of it, somebody just died of a heart attack, the same guy, Yeah. It's like, it's not, it's the coincidences. It's all coincidences, but we all know what it is, but it's easy for them to avoid responsibility because they have all these coincidences.
Yeah, I'm also very curious about the actual death rates. And, of course, they're lying through their teeth about everything. But it was very interesting a few years ago when the insurance companies, the life insurance companies were going, hey, wait a minute. The death rates are skyrocketing and our premiums and da-da-da-da. And now you don't hear anything about that anymore at all. And
the cancers and then the fertility is supposed to be, these things are so depressing and I can't change it. And I'm clean. So like, I don't go down that rabbit hole yet because I don't really want to know. And you know what I mean? It gets me like so many rabbit holes I just don't want to go down because I know from 30,000 feet what's going on. That's all I need to know. You know what I mean?
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, Drew, growing your own food, it's something that you can do. It's proactive. Mm-hmm. It gives you more independence. It does not have to take a lot of time. It really doesn't,
So what do you have now? What are you growing now? What do you got?
Yeah. So first of all, let me give some backdrop for people. So I moved to Puerto Rico and I had a house in Colorado, lovely little farmhouse on an acre, good river bottom soil, water rights that went to the 1800s. This beautiful little spot. But I was just not meant to be there, and I couldn't keep two places, and I really want to be in the tropics. So I'm here, and for whatever reason, the universe has just like, I have not been able to find my place. So I've been moving from rental to rental to rental. And right now I'm in a rental, has a very small front yard. The backyard just like is a cliff. You drop off the cliff, it's almost useless. Yeah. So, and I did not, in this rental, I keep thinking every rental, like, oh, I'm going to find the property soon, so I'm not going to do anything, right? And then I'm there for a few months and I'm like, well, I just really want to grow food. And now when I saw the whole tariff thing happen, I was like, oh my God, this is going to hit really soon. So I want to get livestock, and genetics is what I'm really going for. So I bought some rabbits, and I've got the rabbits in the front yard in just exactly what I show people in that webinar. I got them in these tractors that I move them around so they get fresh grass. And I bought 6 laying ducks. And actually, I ended up buying baby ducks, which I don't normally recommend. As I said, you don't want to raise them from babies because it takes a set of skills. But this was what was available to me, and I figure I've got a few months anyway, and I do have the skills. So I got the baby ducks, and so I have 6 ducks and 3 rabbits, and then I have a nursery area with the classic stuff, the scallions and tomatoes and a bunch of different greens, sweet potatoes, different, they're called chaya, different greens and things, and then some trees that I've accumulated that I keep thinking I'm going to plant in the ground. Yeah, so I do also, every Sunday, man, I'm at the farmer's market. I know all the farmers. I do my best. Sometimes I spend more money than for what I need, and I give the food away because I want to support the local farmers, the people who are producing. And, I go there, I've got a big bag and sometimes a little trolley. Like, I'm buying my food there. I'm not going to the farmer's market to get a little cutesy thing for an event, and I know them. Wow, you grew this. What are you using to fertilize that? Where's your farm? Like that, right? Some of them I'm starting to visit their farms. And then, when I have to, I go to the supermarket, but it's usually for cat food.
Yeah. So to start, the best thing you can do is at least a 1/4 acre. If you got it. If you don't, you're going to grow it in your house. And you want to start with chickens and then work your way to the garden. And if you're inside and you got a condo, you can grow stuff in the window. If you have a porch, you can grow it on the porch, and you can actually have rabbits in the house. And you said, what'd you say the bird was? Was it quail?
Quail.
Eggs. Yeah. In the house.
I'll tell you another thing I really like. So, we were talking before, and if you have a question, I got a really funny story for you. So if you have a question or a desire, and we're in a spiritual war, so use your spiritual resources. So if you I really want to grow food. And for a while there, I had so many people that were like, I live in an apartment condo. What can I do? It's hopeless. I'm like, no, it's not hopeless. And so I was asking the universe, I was like, what can people do that live in an apartment that's beyond the sprouts, right? Because the sprouts it's wonderful, but it doesn't have a lot of calories. Like, what can they do? And, and then the universe answered me. So my son, my teenage son, was growing psilocybin mushrooms in the closet that we didn't know about, right? And so we deal with that as parents. We find out about it, and we deal with that as parents. Like, okay, and then that gets handled. But I'm like, oh, you can grow mushrooms. The universe will answer you.
Yeah.
You got to be open-minded. And so, yeah. And Drew, you ought to they make it so easy now. You can get these logs that you just spray it down, and you can grow some shiitakes or, oysters or whatever. At least you're doing something, and you can grow mushrooms, and mushrooms are pretty substantial. In fact, after I get off of this, I'm going to stir fry some mushrooms. I buy it from a farmer with some eggs, and that lovely breakfast. Well, actually, for me, it's going to be a late lunch. So, yeah.
All right. And then obviously they need to go to the website. Say the website again one more time.
It's backyardfoodproduction.com.
Okay, like I said, I'll put it in the notes too. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you go there, it's 45 minutes because nobody has time anymore. It used to be a lot longer, but I really dialed it in. I go through the calories. I go what it looks like. I go through the nutrition. I show you what you're going to be doing every day. There's actually some plans and sketches. You can see what it all, how to do this. You can do this. And then in the follow-up email sequence, how to grow, how to produce all your chicken feed for free, There's a 33, they're short episodes of high performance gardening that I did when I was in Colorado with my friend Lynn Gillespie, where we start with a lawn and we build the 2 cinder block beds that I talk about, and we produce just a ton of produce just in that. And every episode goes through all the different stuff I go through and how we did it.
What a resource.
Yeah, and it's all for free. We give you the link for that. You can do that.
Well, now this is the Grow Network. Is that what these are 2 different websites? Are they connected?
They're connected, but the Network is so big. The feedback I've gotten from people is they're overwhelmed when they go there. So go to backyardfoodproduction.com, watch the webinar. You'll start getting the email follow-up sequences with a bunch of resources, and then we'll get you into we have a newsletter that comes out 3 times a week with really useful information. And occasionally we do try to sell you if I find something really useful, I figure out a way, if there's a possible way that I can sell it to you, I do that, because we gotta pay for the servers and all that stuff.
And the Grow Network is a fabulous. I mean, it is a lot of stuff for sure. And this is a good place to kind of like step in slowly, baby steps in. But like you guys sent out emails. Like the one I got recently was like the 5 tools you need to have a garden. I was like, I don't know anything about gardening, right? So like this was like really valuable email. And then you have courses like $30, how to raise goats, how to raise rabbits. It's a really, really good website, thegrownetwork.com. And then of course you have this website here. And do you ever do 2 things, and then I'll let you go. You were selling, they were seed vaults. You want to talk about seed vaults real quick, and what we should do about those? Those are
important. Oh, I could grab. I've got one here. I partnered with a friend of mine. Her name is Lucinda Bailey, and I've known her for years because we used to do prepper festivals and Mother Earth News things together. And when I go to those things, I'm shopping, right? And she has these wonderful seed vaults, and just packed full of seeds. And if you buy one from her website is texasready.net, and the seeds are applicable everywhere. She just said, if you're Texas ready, you're ready. So she uses the name, and she lives in Texas. And you use the coupon code GROW, just GROW. She'll throw in an extra pack of nutrients. But I really, really recommend everybody right now go buy a seed vault. Here, hang on one second. I'll go grab mine.
Okay. Let's see.
This thing is kind of heavy. She puts them in.
For those listening, I will describe. Okay. So it's basically, for those listening, it's in an ammunition case.
We're gonna make that work.
It's in a bullet case.
Puts them in these milk ammo cans.
Yeah, ammo cans. Okay.
And gives you a bunch of directions. This is the mineral package. It's got all kinds of minerals that you add to your garden. This will last you for about a year, actually.
Okay.
And then just all kinds of seeds.
Oh, wow.
And books, and especially the one on seed to seed, growing seed to seed, the Vegetable Gardener's Bible.
What does that mean?
Incredible kit.
What does that mean, seed to seed?
And
how many seeds are in there?
It's heavy.
Okay.
Oh, here you go. TexasReady.net.
Okay. And then the seeds.
When you're in business, you can't do it all, and I always want to make sure people have seeds.
Yeah.
And
those seeds, once you grow those, you have the plant. It's basically just going to keep producing food if it stays alive.
That's the most important thing. Yeah. Okay. Lucinda's all about making sure these seeds are what we call open pollinated. So you can save the seeds from the plants over and over and over again. There are seeds out there that will not, that's it. Some of it's intentional, some of it's not, but some of it's genetically modified, but these are all good seed. And I really want to strongly, even if you're not gardening right now, these seeds, most of them, if you keep them cool and dry and dark, don't put them in the freezer, they'll have good viability for, at least 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Now some of the germination rates will go down, but I don't know if you guys remembered in 2020, it was very hard to buy seeds anywhere. Okay. Once they outlawed
it in Michigan, didn't they? You weren't allowed to buy seeds. Wasn't it that
really
crazy asshole that runs Michigan? I can't remember her name. the one that Trump said's a really great lady now all of a sudden. I can't remember what her, Chris, I forgot her name. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
So
but get seeds, because there is going to be a run on seeds, and seeds.
okay.
It's a small industry, right? Because there's just not that many people growing food, and a small industry can get completely overrun and wiped out very, very quickly. So I mean, just buy the kit, and I got this one is, I think, a 4-person kit, and she's a really inexpensive 2-person kit, and she's got a couple of them, and then she's got this thing is like for a community with 30 people. It's huge. But use the coupon code GROW, and she'll toss in extra things there.
Okay.
When she sees that coupon code, she knows it came from Marjorie. So so you were 2 things you were saying. So one was the seeds, and then what is the other you had?
Oh, do you offer? I'm glad you reminded me, because I almost forgot. Do you offer any kind of, like, I know right now you're kind of in transition, but like people I could go to Puerto Rico and like get a place, and then like for a week you teach me how to do it in person, basically. And in-person training is what I'm asking you.
You know
long
what?
Long and short.
I partner again with the Caribbean Agroforestry Institute. And my friend Stephanie Sison there is a biodynamic farmer, and they do just exactly that. And they've really dialed it in to a 4-day course that they offer from time to time. And they cover building a little off-grid solar system, setting up a rainwater collection. And then in the tropics here, the best way to do food is going to be what we call a food forest. And you'll spend 2 days, planting and tending and taking care and learning how to produce a food forest. So Caribbean Agroforestry Institute. And I'll get you connected when Stephanie has the next one. And I used to teach there regularly we used to do these permaculture design certifications, which were 2 weeks long, and we found that that's just too much time now. And wonderful, life changing, but people don't have time for that anymore. So we've really narrowed it down to this 4-day thing. But yeah, there's, I think almost anywhere, if you start to look, there is a movement of people that are going, hey, we got to grow food. We got to get networked. We got to get connected, and we got to do this. And so there's, I'm here connected because I live on this island. There's a lot of networks starting to happen here. And I don't do things in person that much, just because, I do much better leverage by doing something on a call like this and reaching, thousands instead of one-on-one. Stephanie does a great job though. And I sometimes I teach with her and sometimes not, but she and her husband, Dan, it's wonderful. They're really good class.
So you want to give your last one more time, your websites that they should go to? They definitely should go sign up with the Grow Network. What else should they do?
Backyardfoodproduction.com.
Okay.
Watch the 45-minute webinar. Even if you're not growing food right now, and even if you live in an apartment, you have no idea where you're going to be 3-6 months, a year from now, and you'll learn things. I regularly post on Substack also, and a lot of times they're just short 10-minute videos, and I'm like, even if you're not growing food right now, you're learning and you're seeing somebody do it, and that's going to stick with you, and it's going to be real important. You have been programmed to not be able to grow food, and to not want to grow food, and to think it's terrible. And you being the movie guy, I'm sure you can run through a whole bunch of movies in your mind where every time they portray a farmer or a gardener, they're shown as an idiot. Green Acres, they're
backwoods morons. They're always backwoods morons, and they're always
Exactly.
racist. And they're always racist. They always play that card.
Yeah.
It's so dangerous to be in the South. Well, it's like one of my favorite places in America is Arkansas.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I love Arkansas. I was looking at moving there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, those people are like some of the most capable people that you'll ever want to meet. You want to live around those people.
You do.
At least I do. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'll have all the links for everybody, and go watch her videos. They're amazing. I mean, and the website's amazing. I don't just say that. It's really a really good resource.
Yeah. And if you're listening to Drew, you're wide awake and you need to start growing food. So please let me help you. Cause we need you. We need you, and you're not going to be able to do it on an empty stomach. Right.
That's right. All right. Thank you.
All righty. Bye.
Bye. Okay. That's it. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can follow me on Twitter if you want at Tregsman with 2 G's and an S, or you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Drew Media TV. We also have a Rumble channel, Drew Media, if you prefer there. I know a lot of people don't like YouTube. Also, if you're listening to the podcast, like on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever, if it's not too much of a pain and you like the show, give it 5 stars so we can get some help from the algorithm. Otherwise, all the other links to our social media will be in the show notes, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.